Americans, they will be targets of violence in beach towns controlled by the Sinaloa cartel.
Over a dozen have been arrested in a crackdown on what investigators say is an organized crime syndicate.
4:22 in the morning, Minneapolis, Minnesota, February 14th, 2026. The entire city was locked under a brutal layer of winter ice. The temperature had dropped to 20 degrees below zero, leaving the streets of the Cedar Riverside community completely abandoned. Parked cars sat frozen along the curbs, buried under thick sheets of frost. To the 42,000 residents who lived in this district, the brick building at the end of the block was more than just an office. It was a symbol of leadership. It was the registered district headquarters of State Senator Ahmed Nouri. But outside in the freezing darkness, the silence was about to be shattered. A convoy of unmarked black federal vehicles rolled to a silent stop on the icy asphalt. There were no sirens screaming in the night, no flashing red and blue lights. 58 tactical agents from the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration stepped slowly out into the bitter cold. Their breath formed heavy clouds in the night air. They were heavily armed, wearing full tactical gear, their badges covered to prevent reflection. They moved with a singular purpose. The team formed a tactical stack at the main entrance. The lead agent signaled. A breaching hammer slammed against the heavy oak door. Once, twice. On the third hit, the reinforced frame splintered with a deafening crack. Federal agents. Move, move, move. The shout echoed through the empty hallway as agents rushed in, sweeping every room with military precision. Flashlights cut through the darkness of the senator's office. This was supposed to be a place of public service. Instead of harmless legislative folders or constituent mail, the agents uncovered the command center of a cartel. Behind a false ventilation panel near the main mahogany desk, an agent used a crowbar to pry open the wall. They pulled out 23 vacuum-sealed bricks of high-grade cocaine. Each one was stamped with a specific cartel insignia. This was not a user's stash. This was a distributor's inventory, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, hidden feet away from where laws were written. But the search was just beginning. In the back room, drilling teams focused on a tightly locked steel safe, bolted to the concrete floor. When they finally forced the door open, the agents paused. Inside, they found $4.7 million in cash. It was stacked neatly, banded by denomination and serial number. It was more liquid cash than the entire neighborhood's bank branch held in its main vault. However, the most alarming discovery sat right on Ahmed Nouri's desk. A satellite phone, still active, blinking with a notification light. The screen displayed encrypted instructions, linking this office in Minneapolis to financial hubs in Nairobi, Mogadishu, and Dubai. This wasn't just corruption. This was a full-scale money laundering pipeline operating out of a U.S. Senator's office, a system deliberately built by the very man his community trusted most. The deeper the investigation went, the more the betrayal stung. Senator Ahmed Nouri, now 58 years old, had long been viewed as a bridge between cultures. At public events, he spoke passionately about education, safety, and community growth. In truth, he was using that office to build a criminal network. Over a period of 6 years, that network had transformed from political ambition into organized crime. Beneath the polite surface, almost invisible to the public, an underground structure was growing. Through 27 shell companies, more than $79 million in cash, and $220 million in wire transfers passed through programs connected to his name. Investigators later recovered video from surveillance cameras. It showed Ahmed Nouri meeting regularly with Yaha Osman, a 34-year-old man linked directly to the Sinaloa cartel. Noor protected him for years. Their meetings were never in the office. They were in quiet basement rooms and rented storage spaces. Noor never stayed longer than 20 minutes. He was not there to give speeches. He was there to approve the movement of tons of narcotics into the country. The senator used 5 different cell phones, each with a separate number. Those phones connected him to compromised police officers, officials, and even judges. Some received money, some believed they were helping national security. One by one, they stopped asking questions. But when the full threat began to emerge, Nouri was already preparing for the next phase. Among the discoveries was a shipment manifest containing 62 cargo loads labeled as medical supplies. When agents intercepted them, they were filled with narcotics. Agents were stunned. This was not street crime. This was organized activity carried out with the tools and logistics normally used for war. A man trusted to defend his community had used that trust to build a hidden empire. The investigation had grown too large to remain confined to paperwork. Maps were pinned across the walls of the command center. Red marks indicated dangerous sites. Every drawn line pointed toward one place, the basement behind a nondescript community building on the outskirts of Minneapolis. It looked isolated from the outside, but in reality, it was an active hub where money, weapons, and drugs moved every night. A plan was put together immediately. It was called Operation Northern Sweep. For the first time in modern history, the FBI, U.S. military units, and more than 100 federal agencies prepared for a coordinated assault targeting 29 locations at the same time, before dawn. Without warning, at 4:30 in the morning, exactly 19 minutes before the senator's office was breached, the second phase of the operation began. Black helicopters flew low over the frozen fields, their rotors chopping the icy air. Drones cast infrared beams across the ground, tracking every movement. Dozens of FBI armored vehicles roared toward the gates of the manufacturing complex. When the lead vehicle hit the first barricade, the ground shook. Sparks burst from the metal as the gates were forced aside. Agents moved forward in waves. Explosive charges blew open the side doors. Flash grenades turned the darkness into blinding white light. Inside, the complex felt like a maze. Laboratories, storage rooms, and reinforced bunkers stretched out in every direction. The air was thick with the chemical smell of acetone and ether. Teams advanced room by room. Gunfire echoed through the dark warehouse as armed guards opened fire from behind stacked crates. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, several suspects were face down on the concrete, zip-tied and secured. Then, the real shock appeared. Behind a steel door secured by 3 separate locks, agents found a full production line. Stainless steel tanks, conveyor belts, racks of chemical containers. It was a functioning drug manufacturing facility protected by a security system resembling a military installation. Nearby, crates of military-grade ammunition were stacked beside body armor. In another room, teams discovered a tactical command center, screens, maps, encrypted radios, and on the wall, a photograph showing a police sergeant smiling in uniform, standing shoulder to shoulder with gang leaders. The fortress had fallen, but the raid did not end when the doors were broken. When the last man was taken away, the work shifted to the evidence room. Agents opened a large metal cabinet containing files labeled with friendly names like community development and youth outreach. They sounded harmless, but the numbers inside told another story. Nearly every folder contained receipts for large amounts of money, signed quickly, approved with no questions. There were transfers for $83,000, $120,000, all approved in minutes, sometimes in the middle of the night. A team of financial analysts compared bank statements and city approvals. Gradually, patterns appeared. A councilman in one suburb had signed 6 permits in just 12 minutes. A police captain received a security consulting fee on the same day a suspicious truck passed through his district. A local clinic billed $1.9 million for services that were never provided. One elderly clerk who had worked at City Hall for 27 years began to cry when she saw the documents. "I gave them those permits because they said it was for the children," she whispered. The truth was heavy. This was not bribery whispered in dark alleys. This was bribery done with forms, stamps, and official seals. A second room held something different. On long tables were maps printed from satellite images. Pinpoints marked warehouses, basements, and river docks. Every location was connected by a line. It looked like a web. Not a criminal hiding place, but a transportation system. Near the maps were handwritten notebooks. One notebook listed monthly payments to a police officer, $41,200 every month for almost 2 years. Another list showed names of small businesses. Next to each name was a number. Some were low, $600. Others were much higher, $37,000. No services were provided. The money simply moved. There were emails as well. One message read, "Approve the transfer. No delay." Another said, "Warehouse ready. Do not inspect." As the evidence was sorted, a difficult realization spread through the team. The network was not built by outsiders. It was built by insiders who allowed it to happen. Every document had been signed. Every shipment had been waved through. In the late afternoon, a special meeting was held. The lead prosecutor stood before a long table. Her voice was steady. "We are not looking at one criminal," she said. "We are looking at a structure that has existed for years inside public life." When the sun rose after the raid, Minneapolis looked the same from a distance. But when people stepped outside, they noticed something different. The city was quieter. The flashing lights were gone, but the yellow crime scene tape remained on doors and fences. Residents stood on their porches longer than usual. Newspapers arrived early. The headlines were large. "Major raid in Minneapolis. 29 locations hit. 245 kilos of drugs seized. $52 million in cash recovered." For many older residents, the numbers were difficult to believe. They had trusted the buildings where the raids took place. They donated money, they volunteered. Now the names in the newspaper were familiar, and that made it painful. A retired teacher whispered to herself as she looked at the news, "I used to go to meetings in that building." She wasn't angry. She was hurt. She had believed in the people who worked there. Inside coffee shops, conversations were soft. "I never thought this could happen here." One man said, "We voted for him. He looked like a good man." At a local diner, men in heavy coats sat around a long table. One man tapped the newspaper and asked the question everyone was thinking. If a judge and a senator can do this, who can we trust? A week after the raids, the courthouse steps were crowded. Some held signs that read, "We deserve the truth. Who protected us?" It was not an angry crowd. It was a disappointed one. Banks were quieter. A small branch in the northern part of the city closed for 3 days. Its director had been arrested. Parents were anxious. They remembered the vans parked outside schools a few months earlier. One mother said, "I feel foolish. I thought it was school supplies." Trust had been the first victim. But in that silence, something else began. Neighbors checked on each other. Doors that had been locked only at night were now locked during the day. It was not fear that changed them. It was awareness. They had learned that danger did not always come from outside. Sometimes it came from inside their own institutions.